All right, so the question we want to answer in the second video is, can both sides benefit from trade? So remember, in this case, Abundancia has absolute advantage in both things, and we want to show that even though that might be true, it's still possible for there to be a trade which can still benefit both sides. So it's not necessary that a country has to have absolute advantage in order to trade. In fact, comparative advantage is the key to trade. So let's go ahead. First, we need to get a starting point for each country. This starting point, I'm sort of just picking one. We could start from somewhere else. I'm just making an assumption. You could make a different assumption and the problem is still possible to do. So let's suppose Abundancia is consuming 60 of guns, and therefore they're consuming 80 of butter. Okay, mine doesn't quite look like that, but let's assume that's what it is. And then Cotonou is doing 30 of guns, and they're doing 40 of butter. Okay, so both countries are more geared towards guns than they are towards butter. Okay, so now if we're doing specialization, then Abundancia should specialize in guns and Cotonou should specialize in butter. And the reason why, sorry, I forgot to label this. The reason why is because of comparative advantage. So given comparative advantage, then the Abundancia should specialize in guns and Cotonou specializes in butter. And again, the reason why is because of comparative advantage. Okay, so Abundancia is going to switch all the way up to here and just do guns. This is just production, and Cotonou is going to switch all the way over to here, and they're just going to do butter. Okay, so they're switching their production to this specialized production. And then we come back and look the same way as we did before. We're going to look at whether or not we have more production than we could have previously. So before we had, here's our guns, here's our butter, and we had Abundancia was doing 60 guns, and Cotonou was doing 30, so they had a total of 90, right? And then with specialization, then now they're doing 100 guns, right? So we got a gain. We can classify this gain. Well, by doing this, they're getting 10 more guns, right? And then for butter, Abundancia was doing 80, Cotonou was doing 40, so we had a total of 120, and now we're getting a total of 160. So there's also a gain of, sorry, I should write it as plus 40, not 40 plus butter. Okay, so we get 40 more units of butter. So yeah, so we have confirmed we have more production. Okay, so we get more production, and now let's go ahead and find our trade. So our trade can be found here. Let's put our two countries again. So we got our guns, and let's wrote corn, and we got our butter. Okay, so now with this production, Abundancia is doing 100 guns, and Cotonou is doing 160 butter. Okay, so that's where they're at right now, and we do know that they're going to send guns to Cotonou, and Cotonou is going to send butter to Abundancia. And now the question is, well, how much? Okay, so that's the question of what we got going on here is how much are they going to send? So we can sort of look at the details. So what did they do before? Well, we know before Abundancia was doing 60, so they need to get at least 60, otherwise they might not be happy. And we know before Cotonou was getting 30, so they need at least, so this is keep. If you make it, then you're keeping it, and if you're receiving, then you're getting. They need to get at least 30. Okay, and then for the other product, we know before for butter, we know that they need to get at least 80 because they were getting 80 before, and we know for Cotonou they need to keep at least 40, right? So if they keep 40, so then we can get the range here. So the minimum they can give is 30 because Cotonou will turn down less than 30 guns. And the most they can give, well, they got to keep 60. So they have 100 and they got to keep 60. So that means they can give at most 40. Okay. And then for butter, For butter, Cartono must keep at least 40. So the most they could give is going to be 120, because then they would have 40 left over out of this 160. And they must give at least 80. Okay, so their range is between 80 and 120. And notice something about these numbers, the difference between them is equal to the gain in production. So 30 to 40 is 10 difference, and that's because we got 10 more guns. And the butter is 80 to 120, so it's 40 difference. Again, we got 40 more of those. So let's do this trade. Okay, so I'm just going to make up some numbers. They don't have to be, they're not the only choice. You could make another choice. So they're going to give 35 guns in exchange for 100 butter. Okay, so I'm assuming they're splitting the difference, but they don't actually have to split the difference. So then what's going to be, so now Cartono has 35 guns, and Abundancia lost 35 guns, so they have 65 left. Okay, and then for butter, they give 100 butter, and Cartono lost 100, so they have 60 left. Okay, so this is the idea. Just for quickness, I'm just going to write the gains here. So, well, before they had, Cartono had 30 guns, now they have 35, so they got 5 more, and they had 40 units of butter, and now they have 60, so they got 20 more, and same thing, Abundancia has 5 more and 20 more. So in this case, they split the gains evenly, and by splitting the difference, they end up splitting the gains evenly. So we end up with, well, both sides have more consumption. Okay, and then I just want to show one last thing is to put it on there. So yeah, we split the gains, but this is not the only. We could have picked, for example, 36 or 37 guns or 32 guns, and we could have picked another number for butter, and it still would have worked. So now let's put these on the graphs, and then we compare it to the price, and then we will be done with this section. We draw the graph real quick, and then we'll continue. Okay, so this graph has what they were doing before, and now we're going to show how this trade can be represented. Okay, so in case you don't remember, I'll just remind you. After the trade, so the Abundancia got 65 guns, and they got 100 units of butter. Okay, so put them somewhere here. And Cartono got 35 guns and 60 units of butter. So put them somewhere here. So again, both sides gained from trade. And the way we know they both gained is because they both got more of each good than they had before. So if you have more of everything, you're definitely better off. The final thing to notice is that our price is between the opportunity cost. So our price is between the opportunity cost. So we can just verify that. That's not really a good way to solve the problems, but it's kind of good to see, to recognize the two. Okay, so we had 35 guns traded for 100 butter. Oops, I'm having problems with my pen. Okay, and so one gun equals to 2 6/7 of a butter. And this is between their two opportunity costs. So for the maker, okay, so Abundancia profits, right? It only cost them 2. If we just look at the guns specifically, it only costs 2 butter to make, and the Cartono gets them cheaply. So if they make them themselves, it would cost them 4. So this is something to recognize, that in both cases, if we trade according to comparative advantage, both sides can benefit, and we get a gain for both economies, and they both do something impossible on their own, as we saw in the previous video. The drawback is there will be some losers. So for example, if you were a butter producer in Abundancia, you will be hurt because you'll probably lose your job. And if you are a gun producer in Cartono, you would also be hurt, right? But overall, the two economies will benefit greatly compared to what they could do when they're on their own.